not a publicity stunt or the work of religious fanatics. We do not teach religion. We simply bring you the whole truth of God Yahweh as promised in St. John chapter 16 verse 13, which says, "Howbeit when he the Spirit of truth is come, he will guide you into all truth. For he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come." The point I wish to emphasize here is,
Shalom, shalom, brothers and sisters. All praise be to the Most High God, Yahweh. All praise to His Son, YAHWEHbenyahweh, Prince of Peace. Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. Welcome to another Sabbath day's rest. Today we're going to be talking about a real good topic. You know, we're going to be going over how we've been ruled over in these last days, and how we've been being ruled over all throughout history by these principalities and powers and wickedness and dark places. You know, we're going to try to see if we could discover, get a little more understanding on what these principalities are, what these high places are. You see what I'm saying? So that's what we're going to be dealing with today. And we're going to take our time and go on through this. So we ain't no need to be in no rush. We're going to be flipping a lot of pages. So sit back and let's ride. Let Yahweh drive. We're going to be opening up in the book of Ephesians chapter 6. We're going to start from verse 10. We're going to be starting from verse 10. Like I say, my Father say, "Blessed is the man that see the things that we see and hear the things that we hear." He said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." So in these last days, He are blessing our ears to hear His word and blessing our eyes to see these things that are taking place. Chapter 10, Ephesians, it says, chapter 6, verse 10. "Finally, my brother, be strong in the Lord Yahweh, and in the power of His might. Put on the whole armor of Yahweh, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." We're going to stop right there for a minute. Let's go back up to verse 11. He say, "Put on the whole armor of Yahweh, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." To be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. You see what I'm saying? Verse 10, he said, "Finally, my brother." Like letting you know we are at a final point in time right now in 2010. We're moving towards a dark period of time. You see what I'm saying? And the address was finally. Like, as in the end, my brethren. Be strong. In these last days, we're going to need to be strong in Yahweh's word. That's the only thing that's going to keep us strong and prayed up is Yahweh's word. You see what I'm saying? So, let's do a little bit of investigation, because that's what study is, to investigate. Let's investigate what wiles, the wiles of the devil. Let's look up this word wiles, because we want to make sure we're going to be able to stand against these wiles of this devil. The scripture quotes, "Put on the whole armor of Yahweh, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil," that you may be able to stand against a trickery, artifice of a stragmented meant to fool, to entice, artful, beguiling behavior, deceitful, cunning, trickery, to beguile, to entice or lure, wiles, to suspend or pass, deception, maneuver, a device. So he letting us know right there, in these last days, Satan gonna be coming with trickery. He gonna be coming with beguiling behavior. Satan gonna be coming with deceitful and cunning behavior. He gonna be coming with an enticing behavior, trying to trick you, and entice you away from what Yahweh said do. Especially in these last days, because he know we waking up against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, meaning our physical sense. That ain't what this fight all about. But against principalities. We fighting against principalities. Well, what's principalities? What type of principalities we fighting against? We got to go to the dictionary and find out what principality means. Better yet, let's go to the concordance and look up principalities and look up the Greek word and see what that say. Which is on page 13, which would be 747 in the Greek, 746 in the Greek, which is the word archi. And that is a magistrate, a power, a principality, a rule, the beginning, the corner, the first estate, a magistrate. This word principality. What type of principalities are we fighting up against? Let's look up the definition of principality. Principality. A state ruled by a prince, usually a relative small state, or a state that falls within a larger state, such as an empire. Such as an empire. So, let's start right there on this first definition. So, it's a state ruled by a prince. What prince? What prince? The prince of darkness. That's what it's being ruled by. Them the principalities we fighting up against. The prince of darkness. It say ruled by a prince. Usually a relative small state, or a state that falls within a larger state, such as an empire. 2. The position or authority of a prince or chief ruler. The God of this world. Satan is the God of this world. Then the principalities we fighting up against. That's just part of the principalities we fighting against. That's just to let us know who the prince of this principality. Satan and his angels. Those who that are in opposition to Yahweh and his kingdom being set up. It's a sovereignty, a supreme power, the rule of a prince of a small or subordinate state, the principality, an angel, a supermundane powers often in conflict with Yahweh. There it go right there. They in opposition, they in conflict with Yahweh. When Yahweh sent his son, YAHWEHbenyahweh, to set up his theocratic government, they were in opposition. Satan and his angels was in opposition to that. You see what I'm saying? Because Satan want to continue to rule in his empire. But my Father Yahweh said he's going to overthrow his kingdom. Preeminency. Authority or territory. So we find out that we're fighting against a prince, a principality. Who? The prince of darkness. Satan. Lucifer. Who was cast out of heaven. Him and his angels. And what they come to do, set up a democracy, That's opposite of Yahweh theocracy. They're in opposition to Yahweh's sovereignty, Yahweh's government. Lucifer wants his government to be established. Okay. Now let's go to the synonym finder. Being that we're on this word principality, let's see if we can get a little more information, because this word principality, it gets deeper than just principality. We need to find out what type of principalities. So we're going to go to the Robert Roger Cathora synonym finder and look up some synonyms of principalities, because this is what we're fighting up against. Principality. And the first synonym we come to is angel. We fighting against a principality of an angel. That's the first synonym we come to in the synonym finder. The second one we come to is country. The third one is leadership. And there go that word predominance again. So we fighting against an angel. A principality of an angel. What angel? The angel of death. That death angel. Lucifer. The fallen angel. Let's go look up some of these synonyms. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but we wrestle against evil spirits. For we wrestle against demons. For we wrestle against a demon kind. For we wrestle against power of darkness. For we wrestle against the spirits of the air. For we wrestle against host of hell. For we wrestle against a hellish host. For we wrestle against hell. For we wrestle against souls in hell. For we wrestle against damned spirits. For we wrestle against lost souls. For we wrestle against the damned. For we wrestle against the devil. For we wrestle against Diablo. For we wrestle against Satan. For we wrestle against Lucifer. For we wrestle against a demon. For we wrestle against the wicked one. For we wrestle against the evil one. For we wrestle against the evil spirit. For we wrestle against the tempter. For we wrestle against the adversary. For we wrestle against an old enemy. For we wrestle against the father of evil. For we wrestle against the father of lies. For we wrestle against the serpent. For we wrestle against that old serpent. For we wrestle against the prince of the devils. For we wrestle against the deuce. For we wrestle against the angel of the bottomless pit. For we wrestle against fiends. For we wrestle against Harry Potter. For we wrestle against Baal. For we wrestle against Apollo. For we wrestle against unclean spirits. For we wrestle against so them all the things, that we fighting up against. Them are just some of the spirits from the spirit side. Now, we need to go find out some more of these principalities. What these spirits that we fighting up against, where they dwelling at. We need to find out where they dwelling at in this world, so we can know exactly where they at and how we fighting and who we fighting. Principalities. We're going to go to the second one, which is going to be leadership. 739. Because we fighting against leadership in these principalities. We're fighting against principalities within the leadership in this country that we living in this world that we living in. So, the first one is going to be principalities, which is 739.7. We fighting against dominancy. We fighting against domain. We fighting against supremacy. We fighting against superiority. We fighting against a sovereignty. We fighting against overlordship. We fighting against primacy. We fighting against mastership. We fighting against hardship. We fighting against lordship. We fighting against royalty. We fighting against kinghood. We fighting against scepters. We fighting against crooks. We fighting against chains of office. We fighting against bishops. We fighting against patriarchs. We fighting against founding fathers. We fighting against presidentship. We fighting against chiefs. We fighting against supervisorships. We fighting against dictatorships. We fighting against leaderships. We fighting against imperialism. We fighting against oppressiveness. We fighting against suppressiveness. We fighting against grinding. We fighting against lawlessness. We fighting against irresponsibility. We fighting against disorderliness. We fighting against turmoil. We fighting against chaos. We fighting against law of the jungle. We fighting against wildcats. We fighting against uncontrolled. We fighting against insubordinates. We fighting against unrestraint. We fighting against unacceptability. We fighting against confusion. We fighting against Hellenism. We fighting against ungovernment. You see? So we fighting against all these different principalities. And that's just to name a few of the principalities that we fighting up against. But we're going to continue to dig in of these things that we wrestling against. Because we think we wrestling against flesh and blood. But as you can see right now, we unfolding these mysteries of principalities. What we fighting up against. And you thinking it's just human beings. But it's a system that's purposely set up and designed to keep you fighting against and going through all these things. All these governments and these principalities and these authorities and this sovereignty. What sovereignty? We're fighting against America, sovereignty. We got to follow their law. We got to pledge our allegiance over here. They don't want to follow Yahweh's laws. Remember, they want to follow the prince of darkness, which says democracy, not theocracy. Remember, Lucifer was against Yahweh's rule from the beginning. Yes, he was. He was against Yahweh's rule since day one. He wanted to do his own thing. He didn't want theocracy. He wanted democracy. Let's stop right there. Let's look up those two words real quick. Because one of them belongs to Yahweh and the other one belongs to Lucifer. You get it? Democracy. The word demon is inside of that. Or theocracy. Theo. Let's look up the word theocracy. Because Lucifer don't want theocracy. He wants democracy. And that's why we in the trouble we in today. Because democracy don't work. It hasn't been working. Every civilization that's been on the face of the earth that practiced democracy failed. Every government that was established on this earth besides Yahweh's government will fail. And that's what the lesson behind all this, that's what the lesson of mankind gonna be. You want democracy and you want to reject my theocracy, the rule and the law, the kingdom of Yahweh, which shall never be destroyed. Y'all want to reject that? Let's look up theocracy. Theocracy. Theocracy is a form of government in which God, Yahweh, or a deity is recognized as the supreme civil ruler. His laws being interpreted by the ecclesiastical authorities. A system of government by priests claiming a divine commission. A commonwealth or state under such a form of system of government. Theocracy. See? Yahweh theocracy. Y'all want democracy or theocracy? Because theocracy is the rule in the government of Yahweh and his priests. We're supposed to be a royal, and Peter said we're supposed to be a royal priesthood, a chosen generation. That's what the theocratic government is all about. That's what theocracy is all about. Yahweh government. They're based on his laws. They're based on his church. He said he was sending his son back to get his church. Who was his church? Israel. Judah. He coming back to get them. Why? So they can be set up like ecclesiastical authorities. A system of government by priests claiming a divine commission. What's the commission? What we claiming? Yahweh government. Stop breaking Yahweh laws. Keep his commandments. Teaching y'all the clean and the unclean things. Judging righteously. That's the type of government Yahweh won't set up. His law. His rule. His reign. See? But remember when we first started out, we was talking about those principalities. And it was ruled by a prince over a state, over an empire. See, that's Lucifer want his kingdom. And Yahweh want his kingdom. Lucifer and his angels been ruling all the way up until now. But now we come to establish Yahweh's theocratic kingdom. And YAHWEH was a sign to the world that you don't have time. The kingdom of Yahweh is at hand. That was the message. So we see that. Let's drop down and look at the theocrat. Come from the word theocracy. Theocrat is a person who rules, governs as a representative of Yahweh, a deity, or as a member of the ruling group in a theocracy. As a divine king or a high priest, a person who favors theocracy. I favor theocracy. I'm tired of democracy. Democracy got us what we got today. Hell, homosexuality, abortion clinics, drugs all in the neighborhood, corruption in the neighborhood, crooks, unbelievers. Choose any religion you want to choose. That's the point where we came up into this day. Choose any religion you want to choose. Just don't choose theocracy. That's what Satan offering you continually, daily. Here, you can have whatever you want to do. Just don't do this theocracy over here. You can have my democracy. And they go around the world trying to enforce it on people. If you ain't with us, we're going to plant bombs on you. We're going to come in and take your whole country over. See? That's what we did. Them the principalities we're dealing up against. They about to set decrees to tell you you can't speak how Yahweh wants you to speak. Because they know we coming to set up this theocratic government. They know YAHWEH was the sign. And they know we was right behind it to come in the resurrection, to come doing the same thing. Preaching the kingdom of Yahweh, which is heaven. So let's go look at democracy. We took a look at theocracy, which is the rule of Yahweh and his priests, setting up his government the way he wanted ran, according to his law, statutes, judgments, and commandments. So now we're going to take a look at democracy, because that's what Satan going around the world trying to impose on people. His democracy, his democratic government. You see what I'm saying? His democratic government. Democracy. Democracy. The government by the people. That's what your problem at right there. Is these people of Yahweh? No. The government by the people. A form of government in which the supreme power is vested in the peoples and exercised by them or by their elected agents under a free electoral system. See? Y'all want to put y'all trust in all these politicians. That's ungodly. That's with the Democratic Party. You see what I'm saying? That's who you want to run for. Elected agents under a free electoral system. You want to go cast your votes on people that don't have no knowledge of the God of Israel. They're heathens. They part of the principalities. They train to be part of the principalities. They set up there freely. These are the people we put in office that make these principalities so great. We're gonna continue to discover these principalities. You say, a state having such a form of government, people in exercise directly by them rather than by elected representatives. A state of society characterized by formal equality of rights and privileges. Stop right there. See, formal rights and privileges. They're gonna give you the right. They're gonna give you the right. They're gonna set up rights where you can choose to break Yahweh's laws. They're gonna set up. They set up a system so you can have these free rights, like to be gay if you want to. The call on any God name you want to, the build in the church. You see, they set up these things like this intentionally. The common people of a community as distinguished from any privileged class. The common people with respect to their political power. The principles of the Democratic Party. There you go right there. See? Government ruled by the people and studied by Yahweh. And studied up under Yahweh's authority. The people can rule, but are they gonna rule how Yahweh tell them to rule? No. That ain't the case in this day and time.